Sputnik was only the size of a volleyball, and you could not see that with the naked eye. What you did see very vividly was the booster rocket that put that satellite into orbit. At 4 a.m., I can walk down on my back porch with my daughter in my arms, and much to my utter amazement, that satellite came virtually over my house. And when I saw that, it dawned on me that this was no longer just theories that I'd read about. This really worked.
After jettisoning the nose fairing and last stage of the carrier rocket, the Sputnik started circling the Earth.
In the early 60s, there were the two superpowers, the Soviet Union and the US. There was a lot of anxiety or uncertainty, and the feeling at that time was that this was somehow going to be a judgment of which was the better system.
We choose to go to the moon in this decade and do the other things, not because they are easy, but because they are hard.
When Kennedy started the program for the first 2 years, we didn't know how we'd land on the moon.
I was younger. I was a beginner to them, and they said, let's do it.
We all had the confidence that we were just going to do it. It was never really a question of failing.
Landing a huge rocket on the moon in one shot was an enormous job, and it was Hubble who had this lunar rendezvous concept that really lightened the weight of what you had to lift off the Earth. That concept was what saved the program.
The Apollo was, by its nature, a very public program. It was all that television coverage, the Walter Cronkite stuff, and so on.
It was not like a typical commercial environment where people are jockeying for various positions. All they cared about was the mission would be a success.
Everybody in the building, really, from the janitors to the computer operators, had that feeling that they were part of achieving this important national goal. So there was a spirit there.
Everybody was so dedicated. They didn't have time to get into things like egos and worrying about who did what or who created what.
Between November of 1968, with the Apollo 7 launch in Earth orbit, and November of 1969, we were launching manned missions, most of them with the full Saturn V, every 2 months. It's almost hard to believe that we were doing all of those things so rapidly and so well. The Saturn V worked every time we asked it to, and the computer system worked every time we asked it to. It just was a remarkable period of time.
Were we lucky or were we good? You know, I think we were both. To some extent, we made our own luck, facing up to the problems, not overlooking a clue, not being too selfish.
It involved a team very willing to be creative and do things that had never been done before.
And it wasn't like you could go out and test the waters, as it were. It wasn't like you could send something out there to discover how you would do this. The engineers who did Apollo had to develop an understanding of the mechanics of how you would do it, of gravity, of the interaction between the moon and the Earth, and they had to do it and had to work the first time.
The success of the space program in the 1960s was not something that happened in opposition to the sense of exploration that was going on in the culture. I think it was coupled to that.